Hey guys, I'm Danymal from Danymal Sound. We're here talking about Carm Grasso's new record, Mixed Signals, which I had the pleasure of mixing. As he previously stated, he and I met up on a prior record we did for Tyrrell Ashby out of Balsam Spa, which was a solo record of his. Carm did a lot of the lead guitar duties as far as electric playing, nylon strings, things of that nature. I was blown away by his style. On this record, Carm called me up, I think it was December of 2015, possibly 16, something like that. And he had a batch of 3 records he wanted me to do for him. He liked my mixing style, which is always appreciative. And he asked me, in this case, if I could do something a little different. He records on a sort of an older system, which is a self-contained studio machine, like a Boss Roland unit. So he's just using Apple loops, things like that. Just a general thing. It's a little more exciting than a metronome, or a click track in this case. So he's just playing along to regular old drums, and there's no bass on them. So a little bit different than prior projects I've worked on. So I hopped in the co-producer kind of pilot seat. He asked me to take tracks that he'd worked on and add what I deemed sort of appropriate drum and bass tracks. So I was using predominantly Superior Drummer 2 for those duties, and a plugin from IK Multimedia called Moto Bass, which just came out, which is unbelievable, by the way. It actually lets you just type in notes. It's a fantastic MIDI instrument. You should check it out if you're into production and do that sort of thing. So basically how that worked logistically was Carm would export all these tracks. I believe there were like 11 or 12 per song from his system, and then he would send me a Google Doc or a Word document that had all the tracks labeled, what was the main line, things like that, what's the bridge section, etc. And I would import those into Pro Tools, which is my main weapon of choice, and I would start start the tempo map, because he would actually supply that too, which is ridiculously cool, having a client that would actually be this prepared for a project. So I'd get all that lined up to my click track, have the grid open, and then just start punching in drums, how I saw fit. And originally when I started the project, he kind of just said, go ahead and do basic patterns, whatever, blah, 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 just something for the session guys later to listen to. But of course, me being me, once I get into the groove of things and I start getting creative, I start adding somewhat more, fancy fills, things like that, some, kick drum patterns and such. And I try to get a little more exciting than just, root fifth type of bass line stuff. So I started typing that in. And then later on, basically when that was satisfactory to Carm's taste, I would export that, give it to him, and he would send it to the 2 or 3 gentlemen that were also on the record, Dan, Chris, and Max, I believe were their names respectively, and they would perform their parts. And I think the cool thing that I found out on this project, I didn't expect them to adhere nearly as much as they did to what we actually supplied for them as far as drums and bass parts are concerned. I was really shocked at how close they stayed to what I actually supplied as far as the patterns and things like that, which was kind of nice and made me feel, what I was writing was what they might have come up with naturally too. I do have history as a bassist. I can play. It's not fun for me, but I did begin on drums when I was about 4 or 5 years old, so I do have that background. I'm mainly a guitarist, vocalist, and keyboardist now, as far as a writer goes. But yeah, that worked out great. I sent those files, and then they would send back their tracks, synced up to where my session would be. And if you're wondering, I did not send them the Pro Tools session just for the sake of time and things getting screwed up along the as far as in the transition and things like that. I only sent them basically 2 sets of mixes. I would send them the reference mix, which was my drums and bass underneath Carm's guitars, and a very rough mix of the guitars, and then another version without the bass and drums that just had the click, so they could have that, and they knew what the tempo map was per our notes. And then we got that back. It was a breeze. I used a couple samples. It's my usual process to sort of supplement the kick and the snare. For example, I did use some tom samples in places just to make sure things were a little more consistent. Just modern production procedures. things of that nature. But yeah, Carm and I are currently also working on the next batch after this one comes out. So I'm currently working on adding some possible keyboards, drums, and bass, things of that nature before the next go around. So I'm not sure what the album's titled yet, so you'll have to stay tuned and figure out what that's going to be. But yeah, it's been an absolute blast, and I'm glad that he and I met. We're kindred spirits as far as 80s shred and heavy metal, things like that. So it's been a trip, and he's definitely one of my favorite artists that I've worked with so far. As far as personality, professionalism, and regarding professionalism, like I said before, just he's on top of it. He's got track sheets labeled out. He's got any particular notes as far as problem areas that he might think I have to tackle in a song. And like I said, everything's labeled, annotated. He's got tempo maps and all that. So it's a plug and play breeze for a mix engineer for sure. So yeah, go check out carmgrassomusic.com, I believe is the website, and check it out, and hope you enjoy. As far as unique qualities go in Carm's material, I definitely gotta say, and as he stated as well, we're both sort of from like that, shred guitar vein, Steve Vai, Satriani, the typical suspect, so to speak. He does stand out to me in a couple of ways as far as his textural approach, how he outlines certain harmonies, and just his overall touch. I do believe that even if you're a connoisseur of shred guitar, you will hear a personality in his music. As far as what I mean by that as an example is, if you put on like an Yngwie Malmsteen record, it's Yngwie. He's got a signature sound. He's always got that friggin' neck pickup on for his rhythm guitars. But you'd always know it's an Yngwie solo, for example. You always know it's a Paul Gilbert song, just that guitar tone. And I do feel strongly that Carm is of that caliber, where he's got his own signature sound. His guitars have a certain flavor, color, groove, the way he writes. It's really cool. It's not often I can say that when I'm mixing an instrumental record, at least in this case, that when I mix for Carm, it's almost like I can see colors in my head as the guitars fly by in the mix, which I think is pretty awesome. And I just want to do it justice, and it kind of tells a story, like he said. It's different when you're writing instrumental music, so he's painting with a guitar where you would normally hear a lead vocal, for example, and then he's got what I would consider backing vocals, where there are certain like harmony guitars in the background outlining certain things. So yeah, it's definitely unique in that respect. So definitely check it out if you're into shred guitar or just colorful music in general, anything with a groove. That's something that was great about the session players that he was able to hire for this. They've got a lot of groove. They're in the pocket. It's very punchy. Definitely driving in the car late at night in July with the windows down, music cranked up, the snare will definitely hit you in the head a couple times. So yeah, great stuff, and hope you like it. If you'd like to check out anything I've done, my website is dannylee.co, that's C-O, and I've got my portfolio on there if you'd like to work together, partner up. Hope to hear from you. Cheers.